Hey guys, I'm bringing you an ARC review today. I know it has been so long since I've done one of these, but I am doing that on an ARC I picked up from work, and that is Mask of Shadows by Lindsey Miller. This will be coming out tomorrow. That is August 29th. Yes, that pause was me having to check the date because I wrote it down and still didn't believe myself. That's fine. I'm not always the smartest cookie. That's fine. Anyways, I've talked about this book a little bit in the past. It was sitting on the table at work at Barnes & Noble, and I turned it over to the back and I read this one line. Perfect for fantasy fans of Sarah J. Maas and Leigh Bardugo. The first book in this new duology features a compelling gender-fluid main character, impressive world building, and fast-paced action. And I literally didn't have to read more than that. You all know how I feel about assassins. You all know how I feel about Sarah J. Maas. And when I heard gender fluid main character, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've really ever read a fantasy book, YA fantasy book with a gender fluid main character. So I was really excited on all three levels. So I read it. The main character's name is Sal, Salot, is the full name. And they are gender fluid, and they are working as a street thief when the book opens, and as they are robbing a young noblewoman, they find in her belongings an invitation to audition to be one of the Queen's left hand. And the Queen's left hand are 4 different assassins who take the names of the rings that she wears on her left hand. So there's Opal, Emerald, Amethyst, and Ruby. And Opal has recently been killed in the line of duty, and so the Queen needs a new Opal. And Sal is like, hey man, I could do that. Sal lives in a country that used to be 3 separate countries, Erland, Igna, and Nacia. And they are from Nacia. Nacia was decimated in the war that took place between the 3 countries. The Queen came in from Igna and won the war and took all 3 countries, well, 2 and what was left of Nacia, under her wing. And so Sal sees the Queen as someone who saved like the land and their life, basically. So they really want to work for her. Sal is really also going to get close to the Erland nobles who they believe are responsible for the destruction of their home country. So yes, it is partly to serve the Queen, but it's also partly to exact revenge. And that's what this one line here at the top is: I needed to win and they needed to die. And so I thought that there would be a lot of facets to this book, a lot of really compelling arguments, a lot of compelling world building, and really compelling characters, because I was just really interested in all parts of it, because it just seemed like it was a politically aware book in terms of the countries in which it is set. I thought that that would be really interesting, coming in after this big war, seeing the consequences of it, because a normal YA book might be that war, you know, and how the Queen came to rule all 3 countries, and this is in the aftermath, which I really liked. Before we move forward, I should probably just let you know that at the end, when I finished reading this, I gave the book 2 stars, and if I hadn't already had blocked out part of my reviewing calendar for this book forever ago, I might not have finished it at all. And that is really sad of me to say, because whatever I say from this point on, I need you all to be aware that I thought that this book had so much potential, and there is so much potential for Lindsey Miller as a writer in this book, and I can just see why an agent, why an editor, and why people would really enjoy it. But for me, and I understand that I'm not an editor, and it's like all well and good for me to say this, because it's not my job, and I'm but I just wanted to take this book, and I wanted to run back to Lindsey Miller with a whole bunch of edits and be like, you need to fix this, this doesn't make sense, this writing is kind of weird, because like I felt like if it had just been I don't want to say rewritten, but re-edited in some way. Like maybe it might have been better to read and made more sense, because for every good piece of potential that it had, there was just things where I was just like, and I'm going to try and break that down for you. The first issue that I had was with the character of Sal themselves. And again, before I enter this discussion, I am, you know, a cis hetero white woman who identifies as a woman, and this is not my story, but having talked to a lot of people who are trans or gender fluid about their experience, the way that Sal's gender fluidity was written in the book didn't seem to go far enough for me. The fact that Sal is gender fluid is a big enough of a deal that it has to be explained to people. Like when they first walk into the room of the other assassin candidates, everybody's like, what's up with you? And Sal explains it previously. Sal has to explain it to them. Sal has to explain it to their servant. So the idea of somebody who is gender fluid is kind of like it is in our society. Like some people are aware that there's questions to ask to be polite, and some people have no idea what's going on. And it's clear that, you know, if it was a part of the society, then Lindsey knows how to write that, because the fact that some people are in same-sex relationships and some people are in different sex relationships is made just a part of her story from back to front. There's no like, oh my god, they're gay. It's just like, oh, and their partner or, you know, their husband, like it, that was just melded in. And so that's fine. You don't have to make a political statement out of people being in same-sex relationships. Like, it can just be a part of your world. But since on multiple occasions Sal has to take the time to explain their gender fluidity to multiple people in multiple stations of life, it makes sense that gender fluidity is not something that a lot of people comprehend. However, everybody is super respectful about it. And I mean, like, there are times when Sal is being insulted by a mentor or being insulted by another contestant who is not their friend, and they're like, literally, I think in the opening scene they're like insulting, and then they're like misgender them, and then Sal explains, like, oh, I'm sorry, or they just like immediately ask in the process of like sassing them, or like, you know, being all tough guy, like, and what is your preferred pronoun? And that it didn't seem right. Like, one of the fastest ways to hurt somebody who is gender fluid or trans is to misgender them, and you have these people trying to be mean and then asking for their gender pronoun. So that it just didn't feel genuine. And the only person within the book who constantly misgenders Sal is the bad guy. And I think for a little while we're supposed to be confused by this person's motives and be wondering if they are just rude or if they're actually like the bad guy. But like, because they're the only person who is misgendering Sal consistently, they have automatically like just become the bad guy. Like, you can tell that they're just not a good person, because even these other people who are being rude to Sal are asking about gender pronouns. And also, it's something that a lot of people just accept. We are, again, in a country where 3 different former countries have very, very recently, like within the past 5 years, come together to try and create some culture. And there's a lot of other moments of serious cultural tension between people who used to be Ignan, used to be Irlandian. Nacians, of course, are just really struggling with their country having been demolished. But like, everybody's like, yep, this is cool. And there's not one person who's like, no, that's weird. And again, not that that's necessary, but again, I was picturing gender fluidity in this culture being something that is very similar to how it is in our culture, where there are certain people who are just not okay with it. And that would have been a really powerful way to show the issues that it otherwise tries to highlight between the cultures coming together and not really meshing. And it's just like everybody, no matter where they're from, who they are, what their age is, are just like, cool, what's your gender pronouns? And it felt like, considering that Lindsey was making such an effort to show differences in other ways, to show tension in other ways, to not have also worked that in felt weird and like it was just being glossed over that Sal was gender fluid. And that was frustrating. Like, again, you don't have to make a political statement out of making a main character gender fluid. If you're gonna make everything else around it like a tension point, then not making it one feels weird. So on that note, Sal themselves was just very melodramatic. From one moment to the next, they couldn't decide if they were, a bumbling idiot, if they were really, really smart, if they were really, really angry, if they were really, really loyal, and like their reactions to things just ping-ponged all over the place in a way that just frustrated me. And also the fact that, they've only been a street thief their entire life, but then they go to an assassination competition, and while there are some things they aren't good at, there's a lot of things where they're just like, boom, got this, and killing seems to come really easily. And it was just like, this should have been so much more of a thing than it is, which was super, super frustrating. There was no real effort put in. You never had a question of like, maybe Sal won't become Opal. Like they were so much better than everybody else from the get-go, despite having none of the training that everybody else seems to have. And that was really, really frustrating. The twist at the end was not earned at all. It happened, there were several like reveals that happened really, really fast, and then at the climactic moment it cuts chapters, and then the next chapter begins like sometime afterward, and you're just, it just didn't make sense. And there wasn't, a lot of times, like in climactic moments, there wasn't the amount of explanation that I needed to fully comprehend what was going on, especially at the end, which drove me nuts. It was crazy. And so, like, I felt like every single moment that I really wanted to like this book, something would happen and I'd just be like, but there was so much potential here. And then like you didn't go all the way. And that's, again, just in basic world building things. Like, again, having three countries coming together under one banner, it creates a lot of tensions. There's probably a lot of religions. And the religion thing is mentioned very briefly as well. But they're all like, okay, we were all opposing at war, and now we're together and we all live in harmony, except for like a couple of dudes over here who are angry. And like, it's cool that these other religions went bye-bye and now we all pray to these gods. And it's just like, what? Like, America is one country where people can't agree on basic things. Like, you get in trouble if Starbucks has like the wrong colored coffee cup. There's no way that three countries who used to be at war, worshiped different religions, had different cultural identities, different cultural practices, all came together and sang Kumbaya within 5 years. Like, you're gonna have more than just a couple of outlying problems. Like, I'm fairly certain. And again, and I want to reiterate this so much, is that the reason that I got so frustrated with this book is because I saw the potential in the story. I saw the potential in Lindsey Miller as a writer. And it's not like this book where I was like, oh my god, I put it down, and I was like, oh my god, it's bad. And I just didn't care. I cared so much about the story, and I cared so much about Sal, and I cared so much about this really interesting moment in time that Lindsey Miller has set the story for these three nations, and then it just hurt me. So I don't know. I feel like this has already gone on longer than I wanted it to, but like, I just wanted to explain that there were just so many reasons why this was just honestly a slog to get through, and the writing was so erratic, and the pacing was so erratic, and the characters were so erratic, that I probably again wouldn't have finished it unless I really wanted to do a review of it. And I really wanted to do a review of it because of how much I cared about it, and I thought that if I just kept going with it, that it would get better. And I did read an arc. There's no guarantee that the arc that I read is exactly what the finished product looks like, although, you know, when they create arcs, it's mostly just like proofing stuff that still has to be done. So I'm not that sure that the main content of it will have changed that much. I just wanted it to be better than it was, and not better in like, oh, it was so totally awful and had nothing going for it, but like better in a way that it was almost there. It was almost there, and if a couple of things made more sense and a couple of things were interrogated more and just used to their full potential, then I really would have loved this book. But when so many things, character things, world building things, plot things, just continuously jar you out of the story and have you questioning what's happening or why it's happening, that's not what keeps you in a story. I constantly just got bounced out. Again, this is one of the few times where I've rated a book 2 stars, and I wouldn't say don't read it. Because I think that it has a lot of really interesting things going for it, and I think that as Lindsey Miller moves forward as an author, that she will only get better. So if you're interested in it, I would still pick it up. I just maybe wouldn't purchase it. Or, you know, get it as an ebook, get it from the library, whatever it is. But this book just wasn't meshing together, and I wish that it had. I really wish that it had. So yeah, I'm done. This is it for me. And I do have some more arcs from work, so you can look forward to actually the month of September being pretty arc heavy if I can get my stuff together. So look forward to that, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!